I'd like to welcome Mindy Millard Stafford today as a guest on ACSM's Distinguished Leaders in Sports Medicine and Exercise Science. Thank you for joining us. I know it's been a busy several days for you. We're all sort of worn out, but thanks so much for taking time.
Well, thank you, Jack.
And I just want to start with your early life. I know you're from Pennsylvania, like myself, and where you went to school and your motivation to go off to college and what you wanted to do and those types of things.
Okay. Well, sure. That's funny. Let's see. I'm hard to remember all that in the ancient past, but I think it's important to know I grew up in a very rural town in Pennsylvania, between Reading and Allentown, and in fact I usually just tell people Kutztown, but it's actually a town named Topton, and it's about 1,000 people, and right in the middle of Amish country, farmland. But from very early on, my father was a physical educator, and he coached about every sport at the small high school that we lived right around the corner. He coached soccer. He was a collegiate soccer player and physical educator from East Stroudsburg, where he got his degree.
Yeah, know it well.
And my sister, who is 4 years younger, and I just loved sports. It was
she the one I met yesterday?
Yeah,
the physician?
Bobby Millard. She's now come full circle as a team physician at Penn State, nice. where both of us ended up swimming collegiately and went to school. But going back to the early days, what's sort of interesting is my father, who coached basketball, baseball, soccer, and then a little later he coached golf. He always valued physical activity, and we were always, shooting hoops, playing tennis. But what really got us going, I think, because the opportunities for those sports were virtually non-existent for girls. There were no youth leagues, etc. But he took a summer job, being a high school teacher, making, I think his annual salary is about $1,300 a year. He needed a summer job. So he took the local public swimming pool and he managed it. And so at the age of 9, this is an outdoor summer pool. Sure. At the age of 9, I had some friends who were swimming on the little neighborhood swim team. They said, we need a 4th person to make a relay, because this is such a small town, the relay. And I asked my dad, can I be on the swim team? My friends want, and he said, that it's too hard work. No. I don't want to hear you complaining, because practice is hard. I said, you can't be on the swim team. Actually, that was when I was 8. I lied. Missed that by a year. Next summer came around, so I still wasn't involved. We played. We played kick the can, ran around the neighborhood, all very, very unorganized. And the next summer, he's still taking care of the pool as a manager. He knew nothing about swimming. But my friends came back. Will you be on the swim team so we can have a relay? So I said to my father at the beginning of the summer, can I be on this swim team? I asked you last summer, you said no. He said, okay, but as soon as I hear you complain about practice, you're done.
Oh, boy, okay.
So the beginning of that summer, I had a 2-piece. I didn't even own a tank suit. So I competed in a little county championship. I think I was dead last. But I had the greatest fun.
Yeah.
And I said, I want to learn how to do this butterfly stroke. And so I would work, we had full access to the pool. At the end of that summer, they had a novice invitational meet for everyone who didn't final in the county championship. And I won this novice meet. And my mother said, well, where did that come from? And these friends said, well, you need to start swimming on the YMCA team, which is about 15 minutes away. So to make a long story short, from that point on, from the age of 9 on, I've been swimming the rest of my life.
What year was that, Mindy?
So that would have been...
A lot of people don't want to date themselves.
No, that was about 1965.
Okay, all right.
1965.
So, and you started swimming competitively, really?
Right after that, at that point. Yeah. But only in the winter, 3 days a week or 2 days a week,
Was
We
that
were
through the Y?
through
At
the Y.
Yeah.
We'd have some Saturday meets. So when you talk about training, the volume was
Nothing
was
compared.
very little,
Yeah.
and we were almost self-coached all through high school. When we got into middle school, the high school field hockey coach was the physical education teacher, and so she taught us, all the middle school girls, how to play field hockey. And so as a ninth grader then, I tried out, and I was the starting center halfback, they called it then,
Yeah.
throughout
field
4
hockey
years of high
so
school.
popular back there.
So I was a field hockey player in high school all 4 years until my senior year when I tore my ACL. But we didn't know it was a torn ACL at the time. So we just kind of sucked it up. And
Shake it off,
Yeah.
right?
So I continued to swim throughout the year with a little YMCA team. And then it was coming time to decide what I wanted to do in college. And I did graduate as valedictorian out of my class of 135 students. So it was a small school. And my hockey teammate and I were valedictorian and salutatorian, and we both said we were going to be physical educators. And the question was where we were going to go.
Sure.
And I ended up picking Penn State because even though it was a huge leap, I was going from a big fish in a little pond, literally,
Yeah.
to a very tiny fish in a big pond.
Yeah, that is a big jump.
There was just something about being a part of a major university.
And what year did you start at Penn
I
State?
started in, 1975.
Okay.
1975.
And you went through that program and...
I swam all 4 years at Penn State. I was a physical educator. I ended up captain of the team my senior year. And of course, at that point, collegiate athletics was still under the AIAW.
Yes,
It was
I remember it very well. Yeah,
was
this is
not-
only 3 years after
Title IX.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and so I came in with a freshman class with one gal who, for the first time, was getting some money, getting some aid to swim. I wasn't nearly that good. But I contributed to the team, and by the time I was a senior, we were bringing in gals who were getting aid. So that was the late 70s at that point. And ironically, my sister came in as a freshman, and we were on the swim team together.
And did she get scholarship money?
She did not come in under scholarship, but the time she was a senior, she was an All-American in the 400 IM and earned some aid. And then she went on to medical school at Hershey, and she's been in medicine ever since.
So so you graduate from Penn State. Then what did we do?
Yeah, that was interesting because I did my student teaching in Harrisburg when the 3 Mile Island incident happened.
Yeah.
And we were vacating the schools, and I went back up to Penn State, and I'd been really considering, I don't think I want to go into secondary school education or into, even elementary physical education. And my father, who was a physical educator, said, you need to think about getting an advanced degree.
Yeah.
So I talked to Carl Stadefalk at Penn State and some other esteemed people. I had taken a course in the Knoll Lab. In fact, I was telling this to folks at Buzz's funeral, which I was able to attend and represent the college at just this past spring. Unfortunately, in his passing. But I said, I took a course called Physical Fitness Appraisal in the Knoll Lab with graduate students. It was very small. And I said, wow, this testing and this exercise physiology, this stuff's really neat. How can I study this? And Carl Stadefalk said, well, you need to go on to graduate school. I said, but I really want to be a swimming coach. I want to be a college swimming coach. You still need to go on to graduate school. So I had several opportunities for graduate teaching assistantships, but this 3 Mile Island incident, after we returned back to where I was staying in Harrisburg, I got a call from the University of Florida, and they said, we want you to come down here and be in our graduate program. And I said, well, but I want to be a college swimming coach. What's the opportunities to work with their swimming team? And at that time, they were the cream of the crop.
Powerhouse,
They were the
yeah.
powerhouse
Yeah.
national championships. And he said, well, Chris Zahner, who is our exercise physiologist, works with the coaching staff, and he works with Dr. Bob Cade, who invented Gatorade, and they work with the swimmers all the time, so I'm sure you would be able to do this. So I ended up in Gator country.
Okay.
So I went from Penn State to the University
For
of
a
Florida
master's
for a
at first?
master's
Okay.
in exercise
In
physiology.
what year?
I finished that in 1980.
Okay.
And my thesis was trying to find overtraining markers in world-class swimmers.
Oh.
So I did work with
Nice,
the swimmers.
yeah.
And the Gatorade, I always say, it's funny that Dr. Cade's Gatorade Fund underwrote my work.
Mhm.
And of course, even today, we're looking for overtraining markers
yeah.
all these years later.
Yeah. Well, so you went on somewhere else.
Yeah, so after my time at Florida, I was at a crossroads. I tried to apply for collegiate swimming coach positions. I had one interview and fortunately one offer, and that was at Mount Holyoke College
Oh, I know it well.
in Massachusetts.
Yeah. I was in Amherst for 4 years.
Yeah.
So.
So I was the head swimming coach
Really? Oh, I
and,
didn't know.
and
Grade school.
physical education instructor.
And what year
at Mount
did you go
Holyoke.
up there?
The fall of 1980. So I finished
Okay.
the summer of 80 and immediately took that position.
I don't think I
Now
know.
we start getting close to my introduction to ACSM.
Yeah,
Right now I
yeah.
knew about ACSM through Carl Stadafolk and some of the Penn State instructors,
Mhm.
but of course I had nothing to present. But
Mhm.
after my master's degree, I had
Mhm.
this overtraining study.
Mhm.
So in the Miami Beach meeting in 1981 was my first ACSM
Okay.
poster presentation
Okay.
and attendance.
Wow.
And I'll never forget it because I had this little knee problem that we
Yes,
talked about back in
yes.
high school.
Mhm.
Well, I had just come off a knee surgery, and since the meeting was in Florida, I had Dr. Zahner met me at the airport, drove me down there. I was on crutches and on Percocet.
Oh.
Painkillers at my poster. Don't think it was the best presentation I've ever made in my career.
Wow,
But
that's pretty neat.
But that's when I started.
That was your first.
And I've been a member ever since.
So you only spent 1 year at Mount Holyoke?
So you read those cards right. I spent 1 year at Mount Holyoke. It was a great first job.
Yeah.
I lived right off the campus. I walked.
Beautiful town.
I walked to South Hadley. But for a young single woman, I think I said this is just a stepping stone.
Mhm.
And at that time, I was still a member of AFERD,
Sure.
of course. And I saw this notice in the AFERD update, exercise physiologist / aquatics specialist. That sounds interesting. And it was at Georgia Tech in Atlanta. I said, that's closer back down to Florida. I sort of
Yeah.
liked it down
Yeah.
in Florida.
Yeah.
So I interviewed, and next thing you know, I was hired at Georgia Tech as an instructor who taught a required, it was physical training, physical education course called drown proofing.
Oh, gee, that's a new one. I've never heard that one before.
And it came out of post-World War II training, PT training.
I see.
And Georgia Tech was an all-male school until the 50s. And then it started accepting women. We're still only about 30% women. You notice I said we, because I started there, took a 3-year leave of absence to get my doctorate, and I was rehired. So I've been in the state of
A long
Georgia
time.
now.
So did you do your PhD at Georgia then? Or at
Yeah,
Georgia Tech, right?
Yeah, well, so this is what's a little unique because Georgia Tech had no undergraduate program, but they had a required physical fitness
I see.
and drown proofing. Every undergraduate has to, and still does,
Really?
have to take something related to wellness and
Okay.
less emphasis on fitness now, unfortunately. We don't have a required activity portion. That was changed over the years. So we had this we were a big service unit. But we had a small lab, and Dr. Phil Sparling had been hired. He, longtime ACSM member, and out of an old racquetball court, we cobbled a small exercise science laboratory. And I knew that I didn't want to teach drown-proofing the rest of my life.
Professor of drown-proofing, right?
And in the state of Georgia, they had a program, a stipend program, where if faculty went to get their PhDs, state of Georgia, at the University of Georgia, they would hold your position if you wanted it, and then you could return. So Kirk Curidan had been at the University of Georgia for a number of years.
Right. Yeah.
And I went over and talked to him and said, well, you know, I'm interested in PhD. What do you think? I brought my credentials, and he was gracious enough to take me into his lab. I was fully funded.
Beautiful.
So I did my research with Kirk, and I kept my hand in swimming. Both at Tech, I was an unofficial assistant coach for the men's team. There was no women's team. And at Georgia, one of my graduate duties was working with their swimmers, and they're today, again, one of the powerhouses in swimming. So I was able to merge what I loved into a career. So, I mean, I feel, I mean, how much better does that get?
I know. I didn't realize you had done your PhD with Kirk Curidan. That is really. And what year did you finish?
I finished with Kirk in 1986.
Okay. Now, had you stayed involved in ACSM all that time?
All that time. I never stopped going to particularly the regional chapter meetings.
Oh, the Southeast.
The Southeast.
Very powerful.
And it was usually held on college campuses, and it was affordable. But the little group at Georgia Tech, we had a small contingent that would go by van. If the meeting was in Blacksburg, Virginia Tech, we'd go wherever it was. So when I could afford to, I would come to the national meeting. I might have missed a couple of national meetings when I was in school, but not very many.
Of course, Kirk was involved too, and has been involved.
And so between Chris Zahner and Kirk, you know, Dr. Curidan said, the first thing you do when you get out of your professional and earn your degree is you work toward fellowship to ACSM.
Good point. Yeah.
You get those publications. You get that fellow status. That is important.
Yeah.
And you know, if your mentor doesn't push it,
good point.
It sort of falls off the radar screen because in our busy lives.
Yeah.
So so that was the beginning of my relationship with ACSM.
And so you became a fellow in?
I believe that was 1991.
Okay.
Somewhere around 91,
and
92.
And you shot up to president, like,
in what? 20 plus years.
Did you serve on the board?
Of course, yeah. So yeah, and people I would always sit in the audience and say, wow, I would never want to be standing behind that podium introducing that Wolf lecture.
Right.
So it's ironic how things happen. It was never a not a
real big goal.
Not a planned strategy, but I became very active in the Southeast chapter and became a board member there, and then was on credentials committee, some other committees in the college, and as I was asked to become president and run for president of the Southeast ACSM and won that election, I was also asked to run for the Board of Trustees.
Oh, okay.
And so then I served my 3-year term on the Board of Trustees. But I think my term as president of Southeast ACSM, which was 2000 to 2003, is really probably the defining event because I assumed this leadership role. I loved putting together a program. I've always loved our members, working with people, and that it's the people.
Yeah, everyone says the same thing. They're really good people. you know, that's sort of
It's
what
like a
comes up.
reunion.
Yeah.
And so the labors are always obviously of love, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you have to be on the board, of course, for 3 years, and
And
then
then a
vice
VP
president
and-
for 2 years. There was some time in between Board of Trustees and my term as vice president. And in fact, during that quiescent period, I had my first hip replacement. I also might add, in 1994, I had a daughter.
Oh, okay.
And so some of those things, some of my priorities changed
I'm
in the
sure.
laboratory and at work.
Yeah.
So, you know, I was the first mom of ACSM
Is
as
that
president.
right? I didn't know that.
Fifth woman, but first mom.
Yeah. After having a daughter and granddaughters now and so forth, I see, wow, where does the time go? You know, where does the day go? And all those expectations and demands and so forth. Well, all of a sudden we're running out of time.
I know
but,
that.
I just wanted to get your comment too after coming through all this
And still standing?
I know, we're both going to drop to the floor here in a minute. Where the college has come and sort of where we're at now. Gee, the Surgeon General was just here, and Congress people, and you were on Wall Street, and you know, and you're the blame, right, for all the problems.
No, the NASDAQ was up that day.
That was a good day.
That was a good day.
Sort of just your take on the perspective, you know, where we've been, where we're at, where we're going.
Yeah, you know, it's all good. We were obviously smaller, and we could meet in smaller venues, and we've always had this great appreciation for the diversity of our membership in terms of basic science, applied science, now into clinical practice, and even into now public health and physical activity.
Sure. And the summit people too.
Exactly. The growth of the Alliance is a major part of.
Amazing.
But you know, I really have to credit my immediate predecessor, Bob Salas, for giving us a platform where I think we can galvanize, and that galvanizes the college.
That's
and
good.
leverages
Yeah.
all the factions under this exercise
Everyone fits.
medicine's umbrella.
Everyone fits. Yeah.
And we all need each other to tip the scale, if you will, from an inactive population to one of not only physically active, but physically fit, which is where we all started.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the data supports that physical activity is good, but you know, physical fitness is still part of the equation.
Yeah.
And so I think the emphasis over the last several years, and that's been an investment of college resources and time and of the staff, to really bring us into the public policy arena, to put us on the radar scale, where people, what's this ACSM?
That's what I've seen in the past 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah,
And of course,
definitely.
that doesn't happen by luck.
Right.
You
A
know,
lot
you
of
have to
time
credit
and effort.
Jim. You have to credit
Absolutely.
Jim
Absolutely.
Whitehead
Absolutely.
for pushing us along this path, laying the pieces. We still have a long way to go, but you think about in 2006, the key landmark event was this policy roundtable that identified the steps for policy solutions to move the nation to be more physically active. The first piece was a standalone federal guideline for physical activity. We can check it off. It's not done. We hope we continue to update it every several years. But 2008, a major event. And then just this past May, with all of Russ Pate's leadership,
Oh, yeah.
ACSM in the National Plan for Physical Activity. And so we are always fundamentally grounded in the science of our membership. But now we've said we can't just do our science in a vacuum.
Right.
You know, and the more the public and Surgeon General and policymakers knows it's important, hopefully that will drive funding, agenda, and all the other pieces.
Will follow.
So, you know, I think it's only ACSM that can really pull this
Yeah,
off.
it has the money, the people, the right people, doing the right thing at the right time, I think. So,
And that's right, timing's everything.
yeah, it is, yeah.
And I think
Well,
we're out of time.
we are. Thanks, Mindy. I appreciate you taking time to come over and chat. And
It's
been
it's
fun.
always a pleasure, Jack,
good.
and it's good to get two old Dutchmen from
Yeah, right.
Pennsylvania together now.